So welcome everyone. We have just concluded the lesson on the introduction to the nervous system. We emphasize that the nervous system is very important in detecting changes, whether internally or externally, and then allowing effectors, such as the glands and the muscles, to act based on the information that has been picked from the environment. So we also looked at the fact that the nervous system is divided into two: the peripheral nervous system and the central nervous system. And in this presentation, we are going to look at the central nervous system. So the central nervous system contains or consists of two main parts: the brain and the spinal cord. What you basically need to understand from the word go is that the central nervous system is very important in life, okay? Because most of the functions that our bodies carry out are controlled by the central nervous system. So if you have a problem in the brain, have a problem with the spinal cord, you will lose a number of your functions. Your body will not be able to perform a number of functions. Okay, so it is actually very vital that you keep yourself safe from a head injury or a spinal injury. Okay, that's why we have the border being advised to put on an helmet. These helmets protect the head, okay, such that even if you get an injury, the head is protected. Why is that so? Is that if you get a problem to do with the head injury, the brain will be affected and you get long-term disabilities. You may not either remember your name, you may, so you lose memory, you can actually die, okay? Or you can get paralyzed. So a number of things can really happen, okay? So the central nervous system consists of the brain and the spinal cord. So the brain is protected in the skull, okay? The bone that covers the brain is called the skull. And then on top of that, you have what you call meninges, which are basically membranes that also still cover the brain. So you see that even God knew that the brain is actually delicate. That's why it is well protected using the skull and then the meninges, okay? So if you open the skull, you see that we have the brain divided into two halves, which we actually call the hemisphere. The hemispheres, the right hemisphere and then the left hemisphere. So they look exactly like one another, and that's why we are calling them mirror images. Okay, they are mirror images of one another. It's just like you seeing yourself in a mirror. Okay, you look exactly the same. It will not be distorted. Okay, now we have one thing that you need to know about how these two hemispheres work, especially in relation to muscle movements. You are able to move your hand because your brain is the one instructing your hand to move. So what happens is that the one hemisphere, the right hemisphere, has control over muscles on the left hand side, and whereas the left hemisphere controls muscles on the right hand side of your body. This is very important for you to really note. Okay, so if you get injury in one part, the one part of the brain, you may have the impact on another side of the body, either numbness with paralysis or things like that can happen. Okay, but you need to note that that does not mean that the two hemispheres can't work together. They can actually work together in other functions. So if you get a problem on one side, the other side can come and help. They're basically like good neighbors, if I can use that. So the brain is divided into three regions: the forebrain, the midbrain, and the hindbrain. So let's look at the forebrain. So this one consists of the cerebrum and then the olfactory lobes. It's the largest part of the brain and is involved in higher function. When we talk about higher function, we're talking about reasoning, thinking, critical thinking, analysis. These are what we call higher functions. Okay, they are complicated tasks. Just like you see the image there, the person is looking at a number of things and is trying to analyze, interpret what these messages are all about, so that maybe he can make a decision. That is what you call higher mental functions, okay, or higher functions. Thinking, memory, learning, emotion, those are higher functions. So we already talked about the fact that the cerebrum is divided into two hemispheres, and the hemisphere actually connected through a bundle of nerves called corpus callosum. Okay, and then we have talked about how the different hemispheres work. When we talk about olfactory, it's about the smelling sense. So we're talking about the nose, basically, the nose which is concerned with smelling, or what we call olfaction. Okay, so the forebrain has the olfactory lobes, and in the second image that we have, we're trying to show you where the olfactory bulb is, where you can find it. So we move to the midbrain. It consists of the hypothalamus, optic lobes, the thalamus, and the pituitary gland. You see that in here, the hypothalamus plays an important role in temperature regulation, in hunger, thirst, and then sleep, wake cycle, and then hormone production. So we'll basically look into details of this in the topic called homeostasis. That's where we shall look at this. How the hypothalamus plays an important role in temperature, in thirst, and also in hunger. So the optic lobes are concerned with vision, seeing, or sight. So visual information is carried through the optic nerves. And then we have the thalamus, which plays an important role as it relays sensory information to other parts of the brain region. And then the pituitary gland, we often call it in quotes as the master gland, because it is involved in production of many hormones that play various roles. Okay, and we'll look at the details of these hormones in endocrine system. Okay, and then the last part of the brain, the hind brain, which consists of the cerebellum, that controls movement, balancing, and posture. Here we are using a picture of a person who has taken alcohol, and you see that person cannot really stand properly. The problem there is a problem of controlling movement and maintaining balance and also posture. So the cerebellum is actually concerned with maintaining steady movement. We can call it gait. Okay, if a person cannot maintain proper posture and balance when they are moving, then they be having a problem with the cerebellum. And then the medulla oblongata controls what we call involuntary actions. These are actions that you don't have control over. Okay, your heartbeat you cannot tell your heartbeat to stop; it will continue beating. Same to your breathing, you don't have control over it, and then also digestion. These are functions that the body carries out without you deciding on how fast or how slow they should be. So having looked at the brain, we can now look at the spinal cord. So it extends from the brain and moves downwards. It is protected by the vertebral column. It's also very delicate. You don't want to have an injury that affects the spinal cord. Okay? So we also still have the membranes, the meninges that cover the brain, still covering the spinal cord. Okay? So in the spinal cord, in between the spinal cord and the membranes, we have a fluid which we call the cerebrospinal fluid. It still provides protection in terms of cushion against any force. So along the spinal cord, we have nerves that radiate away, and they happen in pairs. So we have 31 pairs of spinal nerves that emerge at the different levels of the spinal cord. So they connect the spinal cord to the different body parts. So if you have an intersection of the spinal cord, you will have you will see gray matter and what you call white matter. What is in the middle or the central is what you call the gray matter, and then the white matter is what is on the outer sides. So the gray matter is very important for sensory function and also motor function. Same with the functions are almost similar, but with the white matter, it's actually white because of the myelinated nerve fibers that transmit impulses quickly and efficiently for the white matter. Okay? So in our last slide, let's look at what we call reflex actions. The spinal cord plays an important role in reflex actions. So for example, if you have a foreign body that enters your nose, you immediately sneeze. That sneezing is a reflex action. The sneezing will happen. Okay, you don't have control over it. Just be sudden and rapid. Okay, that's an example of a reflex action. So you're saying the spinal cord plays an important role in those reflex actions. Coughing is also an example of a reflex action, and also withdrawing your hand from a hot object is also a reflex action. In our next presentation, we shall look at how these reflex actions actually happen. Thank you.